Sahana Vavatu Sahanau Bhunaktu Saha Viryam Karavavahai Tejasvinavadhitamastu ma vidvishavahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Vakratunda Mahakaya Suryakoti Samaprabha Nirvignam Kurume Deva Sarvakaryeshu Sarvada. Saraswati Namastubhyam Varade Kamarupini Vidyarambham Karishyami Siddhir Bhavatu Me Sada. Samasta Jana Kalyane Niratam Karunamayam Namami Chinmayam Devam Satgurum Brahma Vidvaram Mukam Karoti Vachalam Pangum Langhayate Girim Yat Kripatamaham Vande Paramananda Madhavam. Paramananda Madhavam. Okay, right? So let's read the verses that we covered last time. We're going to read from verse number 11 all the way to verse number 14. Okay, so let's do that. Yadaksharam Veda Vido Vadanti Vishanti Adyatayo Vitaragaha Yadichanto Brahmacharyam Charanti Tatte Padam Sangrahena Pravakshye. Sarvadvarani Samyamya Manohridi Nirudhya Cha Murthnadhayatmanah Pranam Asthito Yoga Dharanam Omityekaksharam Brahma Vyaharan Mamanusmaran Yav Prayati Tyajan Deham Sayati Paramam Gatim. Ananyacheta Satatam Yo Mam Smarati Nityashaha Tasyaham Sulabhav Partha Nityayuktasya Yoginaha. So, in chapter 8, Sri Krishna is sharing this very beautiful message to all of us so that we know how to live life. Although this chapter is, the question is, how does one remember Bhagavan at the time of death? That is most of this chapter. It is also telling us how to live life. And he explains that at the time of death, we can meditate on Bhagavan as that all-pervading being, that the one who is the ruler of all, the subtle of the subtlest. Or we can meditate on Bhagavan as Om, and through the process of yoga, we can exit this body, so to say. But for those people who don't know this process of yoga, pure bhakti is more than enough. Just think about Bhagavan as we leave this body. And by the way, this also means for us to think about Bhagavan when we go to sleep or right before we go to sleep. Death is when we sleep and when we wake up in a different body. Sleep is when we sleep and we wake up in the same body. But we know that when we sleep, the subtle thought that we sleep with, it goes on, and when we wake up, we have that same train of thought. So like that, when in death, at the dying stage, whatever our thought is, that thought carries over towards the next life. And so Bhagavan says, better think of me. So last week we saw all about Om, and we saw an example of Ganga Sati, how even she thought of Om as she left her body. And we also saw how somebody who is living life of bhakti remembers Bhagavan all the time, constantly. Because the idea is that everything is dedicated towards Bhagwan. I myself am dedicated towards Bhagwan, so therefore everything is dedicated to Bhagwan. I have dedicated myself to Bhagwan, so everything is for Bhagwan. The goal is Bhagwan. And whoever we are serving, we are only seeing Bhagwan. So in this way, we saw these methods. Now, some might think that what are the chances that I will remember this teaching at the end of my life? What are the chances? So, as we saw before, it takes abhyāsa. It takes a lot of effort for it to be effortless. When somebody knows how to type in a computer really, really fast, that just didn't happen like that. It took a lot of effort for somebody to learn how to type one by one. When somebody knows how to drive all over New York City, it didn't just happen like that. It took a lot of effort and driving school and watching all those videos to know how to drive that way. So if we put forth effort in centering ourselves on Bhagwan here and now, then it becomes very easy. Becomes sulabha. It becomes sulabha, as he says in verse number 14. Now, he's going to explain why is it that we should attempt to do this? Why are there so many verses about us reaching Bhagwan's feet or uniting with Bhagwan or thinking about Bhagwan before we leave this body? Why? So we go on to verse number 15. Mamupetya punarjanma
मामुपेत्य पुनर्जन्म
दुःखालयमशाश्वतम्
दुःखालयमशाश्वतम्
नाप्नुवन्ति महात्मानः
नाप्नुवन्ति महात्मानः
संसिद्धिं परमां गताः
संसिद्धिं परमां गताः
मामुपेत्य पुनर्जन्म दुःखालयमशाश्वतं नाप्नुवन्ति महात्मानः संसिद्धिं परमां गताः. So what he says here is mam upetya, mam, me, upetya, having attained me, punaha janma dukhalayam ashashvatam na apnuvanti. One does not get, na apnuvanti. What? Punaha janma. They don't get birth again. What is birth? Dukhalayam. It is a house of pain. Ashashvatam. It is impermanent. It is non-eternal. And the Mahatmas, Mahatmanaha, samsiddhim, they attain paramam gataha. They, having reached the highest perfection, they attain that and they do not get rebirth again. So having attained me, these Mahatmas do not take birth, which is the house of pain and is non-eternal. They, having reached the highest perfection, moksha. So this is a very beautiful verse to contemplate on, because when we don't do smarana of Bhagwan, what do we attain? Marana, birth and death again and again. This birth coming into the world is called dukkhalayam. It is an abode of sorrow. Vidyalaya is an abode of knowledge. Pustakalaya is an abode of books, a library. Karyalaya is an abode of work, the office. This world is called dukkhalaya, abode of sorrow. And we might think that there are bits and bits and bits of joy. Well, that joy is ashashvata. It is temporary. Again, we're going to get sorrow. So we might get a little bit of joy, but again, it's going to be sorrow. So in one of the stotrams of Adi Shankaracharya ji, he explains how sorrowful birth is, how sorrowful coming into being in this body is. First of all, as a young fetus, we are cooked. It says cooked in the agni, in the heat of the body, and we cannot do anything about it. We are cooked in heat, and we are surrounded by all of these things inside the body. And when we come out of the body, it's extremely painful because all of a sudden we're there. And when we start getting comfortable, sometimes we get comfortable in pain also. Just when we start getting comfortable, we come out, and that birth process is very painful, not only for the mother, but for the baby. So the baby starts crying. And the baby, very young, has to stay in its own filth, right? The baby has to wear pampers, has to stay in its own filth. And when the parents are new, the baby cries and cries, and the parents don't even know why the baby's crying. The baby cannot talk, cannot express himself, herself, cannot say, I am hungry, cannot say, I am sleepy, or this is uncomfortable. The poor baby just cries and cries and cries and hopes that somebody can understand the baby. And then as the baby grows a little more, the different people carry the baby, want to carry and hold the baby. And Gurudev says, poor baby, sometimes people with a lot of beard and mustache, they hold the baby and they're scratching the baby, and the baby's suffering in so much pain. And then the baby wants to walk but cannot walk, wants to eat but yet cannot eat, wants to do so many things but feels so limited, and cries and wakes up and sleeps and wakes up. So the first whole year is just like this. And as the child grows and the child has to go to school, that is also dukhalaya. That is also dukhalaya. The first time the child does not want to go to school, does not want to leave home, and the child has to sit there in school. And then homework and all of these tests, everything that they have to do and go through peer pressure, anxiety, all kinds of things they have to go through. And then as they go through adolescent stage, they meet somebody, and then heartbreak. Again, they go through all of that. And it goes on and on and on and on. Up till once they're married, and then they have kids. And then in old age, so much pain, so many aches. Every week there's a new thing. There's a new news bulletin in old age. First this is aching, and then that's aching, and then something else is aching, and so many things are aching. One after the other, it's non-stop. Now, if somebody really analyzes this, just reflects about life and the journey of life and how much one has to go through, will one ever want to come back again? He says, it's dukhalaya. It is dukhalaya. If at all there is some joy, the joy is only in reveling in Bhagwan and listening to the name of Bhagwan and study of the scriptures, in these subtle sattvic moments. That's where the joy is. Otherwise, it's like an abode of sorrow. Again, we have to go through election. Again, we have to go through a new cycle. Again, up and down. So many things will happen. Dukhalaya. So Bhagwan says, those who attain me, they don't have to go through this dukkham again. Why do they want to go through it again? And it is so temporary. It's so even if the joy comes, it's temporary. It becomes sorrow again. And even if one becomes full for a moment, again they have to gain something. It's not that I eat one meal and I'm full for life. I have to keep eating and eating and eating. It's not that I exercise once and I'm healthy for life. I have to keep exercising and exercising and exercising. So there can be such gains, but they are temporary. And so he says, once attaining me, Nobody has to go through this again. And the Mahatmas, they are one of great hearts, big hearts. They attain moksha. They, having reached the feet of Bhagwan, attain moksha. And they are not afraid of any rebirth or anything. Why? Because the Mahatmas have cried for God. We haven't. You know, when there's a mother and there's so many children that are playing around, there's one child that will cry and cry and cry incessantly for the mother. Now, who will she go to? Will she go to the ones who are just playing here and there, or will she go to the one who is crying for her? The one who's crying for her, she will go and hold that child right away. And that child stays on the lap of the mother. Huh? In the same way, Mahatma means somebody who has cried for Bhagwan. Has cried and cried and cried for Bhagwan. That Bhagwan said, I have to hold him or her. I have to hold this being. I have to hold this being in my lap because they have cried for me so much. So the Mahatmas sit on the lap of Bhagwan. And when children sit in the lap of their parents, they are free from fear. They have no anxiety, no worry, no stress, nothing. Sometimes all the children want to do is they just want to lay on the lap of the parent. They just want to sit with their parent. Everyone wants to do that because that's the abode of calmness and peace. The same way these Mahatmas, they sit in the lap of Bhagwan. So they are free from fear. They are ever calm. They are joyous. They are peaceful. Even here and even now. So Bhagavan Shri Krishna says, oh, if one reaches me, why I'm saying, reach me, come to me, attain me, why I'm saying all of these is so that one will not have punarjanma again, which is an abode of sorrow, which is so temporary. Be one who is a Mahatma. Be one who cries for Bhagavan and sits at the lap of Bhagavan and attains that ultimate reality, moksha. Okay, now where will we go if we don't go to Bhagavan? Let us say we do not attain Bhagavan here and now, where will we go? So this now he explains in the next verse. Abrahma bhuvana lokaha
ब्रह्मभुवनालोकाः
punaravartinorjuna
पुनरावर्तिनोऽर्जुन
mamupetya tu kaunteya
मामुपेत्य तु कौन्तेय
punarjanma na vidyate.
पुनर्जन्म न विद्यते
Abrahma bhuvana lokaha punaravartinorjuna mamupetya tu kaunteya punarjanma na vidyate. So he says, there are those who come back again into this world. And where do they come? Abrahma bhuvanat lokaha, up to these worlds, up to the world of Brahma. So this is what we have to understand. Brahma is Brahman, but Brahma with a long A is Brahmaji, Prajapati. So they come to the world, up to the world of Brahma. Punaha avartinaha. And that world is also subject to rebirth. That world is also temporary. O Arjuna, mamupetya, but those who have attained me, O Kaunteya, punarjanma na vidyate. But those who have attained me, they do not again go through rebirth. So it says, worlds up to the world of Brahmaji are subject to rebirth, O Arjuna, but he who reaches me, O Kaunteya, has no birth. So in our Shastra, there are 7 levels, 7 heavens rather we call, right? Kind of heaven, because heaven, when they say in other religions, it's a permanent place. But for us, it's not like that. That's why we call it loka. Loka literally means realm of experience, which is impermanent. So we have Buhu, Bhuva, Swaha, Mahaha, Janaha, Tapaha, Satyam. These 7 higher worlds. So let us say somebody has been seeking Bhagavan and somebody has not attained or reached Bhagwan in this very birth itself, then that person again will have to be reborn. And where will that person be reborn? Either here in earth, buhu, bhuva. Bhuva means like interspatial. Swaha means swarga. And then the higher worlds of Maha, Janaha, Tapaha, Satya. Satya means Brahmaloka. So even if one goes up to Brahmaloka, there is a chance that they will come back into this birth again, into this life, into this world, into whichever world, as whatever being. There's a chance again they will come to be in this world. And when I say world, just don't take it as earth. It could be any of these worlds, any of these lokas. So there's a certain kind of upasana called ahangraho upasana. This takes one to Brahmaloka. What is this ahangraho upasana? This ahangraho upasana is also known as nirguna brahma upasana. It means that somebody thinks or identifies with Brahman, but on feeling based, not based on any vichara or inquiry. So on feeling based, on faith based, not on inquiry based. So for example, we learn that Brahman is of the nature of Sat Chit Ananda, right? We learn this. We also learn Aham Brahmasmi. I am Brahman. I am Atma Brahma. This Atma is Brahman. When we realize this truth here and now, then there's no need for all of this. Because the one who realizes the truth here and now, to that person, the world is Brahman itself. The world is Brahman itself. Whether it's there or it's not there, it doesn't matter. The world is Brahman itself. But for the one who has not realized it, but has faith in Aham Brahmasmi, and I am Brahman, or has faith in this Atman is Brahman, and contemplates on that, studies that, reflects upon that, that's called Nirguna Brahma Upasana. That is an Upasana. That is not knowledge, that is an Upasana, because that is still faith-based. Although one is learning it, one still has not realized it. So when one does certain kinds of upasana, like this ahangraho upasana, which I have mentioned, upasana means contemplation, or nirguna brahma upasana, then that being reaches Brahmaloka. And Brahmaloka is also known as Satya, and that's the highest realm. It's the highest realm. But even reaching there, one still has to gain knowledge. One still has to gain knowledge of that ultimate reality as oneself. And if one gains knowledge in Brahmaloka, then there's no coming back. But there's also a chance that one will not gain knowledge. And if one does not gain knowledge, then they come back. So it is like return trip guaranteed. It's like when we live our lives in a way wherein we're not preparing for this moksha or enlightenment, return trip or round trip guaranteed. It's also cheaper if we book that way. So it's like we've already gone to Expedia and we've already booked round trip. I'm coming back, I'm coming back, I'm coming back. Because we're not centering our lives on Bhagavan and we're not keeping this moksha in mind. So as long as we are off the track and we do not gain the knowledge of the self and ultimate realization, we will keep coming back again and again and again up to Brahmaloka. Even one who has gone to Brahmaloka and has not gained knowledge of the self will come back again. But Bhagavan says, the one who has attained me, has realized me, does not come back anymore. And for the person who has realized this truth, here and now itself, there is no birth, there is no death, there is no world. And for the person who has also realized the truth, Bhagavan is not apart from them. Please know that this is always realization that Bhagavan is right here. If we say that Bhagavan is somewhere else, that means space is greater than Bhagavan. Space has the ability to divide Bhagavan. If we say we only attain Bhagavan sometime in the future, that means time is greater than Bhagavan, because Bhagavan cannot be gained now. So when we say or when we think that Bhagavan can be attained in another place or in another time, we are saying indirectly that time and space are superior to Bhagavan. But Bhagavan is infinite. So it cannot be that Bhagavan is there and not here. It cannot be that Bhagavan will be there but not here now. So that is the crux of this verse. Now, he's going to explain how even Brahmaji, that creator, even he is bound. Even Brahmaloka, even that is time bound. So he's going to go into how all of these worlds are time bound and how actually this creation happens. Okay, verse number 17 now. Sahasrayuga paryantam
Sahasrayuga-paryantam
aharyad brahmano viduhu
aharyat brahmano viduhu
ratrim yuga sahasrantam
ratrim yugasahasrantam
teho ratra vido janaha.
teho ratravido janaha
Sahasrayuga paryantam aharyad brahmano viduhu ratrim yuga sahasrantam teho ratra vido janaha. So he says here, Sahasra Yuga Paryantam means ending in 1,000 yugas. Ahaha Yat Brahmanaha Viduhu. That is the day which the knowers of Brahma, they know. Ratrim Yuga Sahasra Antam, that which is ending in 1,000 yugas. Te aha ratraha vidaha janaha. They know it. Who knows it? The knowers of day and night. The people who know day and night. So what does this mean? It means those people who know the length of the day of Brahma, which ends in 1,000 yugas, and the night which also ends in 1,000 yugas, they know day and night. So here it's explaining about the cycle of Brahmaji, the creator. And why it's explaining this is to show us it's temporary. Even if we attain this, it's temporary. Again, we will have to come back. Again, we will have to come back. It's a never-ending cycle. This whole birth, death, birth, death, birth, death, it's a never-ending cycle. So now I'm going to share with you what that formula is. You know, it's a very brilliant thing here. I'll just share this with you. It's a calculation, okay? So what is a calculation here? We have 4 yugas, okay? So we have Kali Yuga, and this Kali Yuga is 432,000 years. Kali Yuga will last 432,000 years. Where are we in Kali Yuga? We're around 5,000 years. So lots more to go. Lots more to go. Dwapar Yuga is 864,000 years. Huh? So it is like this times 2, 864,000 years. Treta Yuga is 1,296,000 years. And Satya Yuga is, this is 4 times 3, this Kali Yuga times 3. Satya Yuga is 1,728,000 years. Huh? So this is 4 times 4. Now, this, you add all of this up. You add all of this up, right? And what do you get? 4,320,000. This is one Mahayuga. This is one Yuga. But 1,000 of this is 1 day of Brahmaji. So 1,000 of this is 1 day of Brahmaji. And then 1,000 of this Mahayuga is 1 night of Brahmaji, right? So if you put this together, 1 day is 1,000 Mahayugas and 1 night is 1,000 Mahayugas. That is, you add, it's 4.32 billion years for each. So 1 complete day and night of Brahmaji is 8.64 billion years. Billion years. Huh? And then his lifespan is 100 years. So he, Brahmaji, also lives for 100 years. So you see 8.64 billion, because this is just literally 1 full day, times 365 days a year, times 100 years. We're talking about over maybe 300 trillion years. Something like that is how long Brahmaji lives. So here it says, this is the length of Brahmaji. This is how long he lives. And his living is also temporary. It's not permanent, it's also temporary. So even if we attain whatever world it is, again we'll have to come back. Again we'll have to come back. You know, it's like our lives. Imagine if you're constantly going on vacation, how tired will you get? Packing, unpacking, packing, unpacking, packing, unpacking, going from this place to another place, to another place, to another place. And we only find fulfillment when we come home, when we come to our bed, when we come to eat our own food, when we sit on our own couch. Then there's a feeling of fulfillment, of peace, of comfort. So like that, we are traveling again and again from birth to birth to birth, packing, unpacking, packing, unpacking, packing, unpacking, carrying with us all of our vasanas, all of our desires, and it will just go on and on and on. Even if we get into the higher worlds, it will go on and on. Now, more of what exactly happens, he explains. Let us see verse number 18. Avyaktadvyaktaya sarvaha
अव्यक्ताद्व्यक्तयः सर्वाः
prabhavantyah ragame
प्रभवन्त्यः रागमे
ratriagame praliyante
रात्र्यागमे परीयन्ते
tatreva vyaktasanyake
तत्रैवाव्यक्तसंज्ञके
अव्यक्ताद्व्यक्तयः सर्वाः प्रभवन्त्यः रागमे रात्र्यागमे प्रलीयन्ते तत्रैवाव्यक्तसंज्ञके. So it says here, avyaktat, from the unmanifest, vyaktayaha sarvaha prabhavanti. All the manifest, they proceed. So from unmanifest, all manifest proceed. Ahaha agame, at the coming of day. Ratri agame, at the coming of night. Praliyante tatra, there itself they dissolve. Tatra eva, there itself they dissolve. And it's called avyakta. They dissolve in that avyakta. that which is unmanifest. So from the unmanifested, all the manifested proceed at the coming of day, and at the coming of night they dissolve verily in that alone which is called the unmanifest. Okay? Now, what's happening here? What's happening here is, in our Shastra, see, from the highest standpoint, this question always comes: why is the world there in the first place? If you're saying it's dukhalaya, it's ashashvata, it's this abode of sorrow, it is temporary, why is this world there in the first place? So many levels of answers can be given. So first we will see those levels, and then we will see what this manifest unmanifest means. One level is that the world is made for jivas to exhaust their karma. So one level is this: this world has come to being because jiva has to exhaust their karma. But there's a flaw in that, because we're already presupposing that jiva is there. Then where did jiva come from? So you cannot say jiva was already there. So that's a little bit flawed. And then another reason that people give is Bhagwan's Leela. This is all Bhagwan's Leela. This is a nice reason, but was Bhagwan bored that he has to have Leela? Yeah, right? Why would he have a Leela in the first place? So the highest standpoint is that apta kama na spriha, means the one who is fulfilled will not have any desire. The one who is fulfilled will not have any desire. So if that Bhagavan, who in essence is Brahman, is fulfilled, why will the desire arise? Why will the Leela happen? So from the highest standpoint, what it says is, did it happen? When we say we're seeing a snake on a rope, is there actually a snake on the rope, or are we just seeing it? We're seeing it, right? There's no snake actually in the rope, but we are seeing something and we don't know what it is, so we say it is snake. In the same way, there is no actual creation. Only Brahman is there. Only Brahman is there. Huh? Very clearly, Brahman is there. But because we don't see it clearly, we call it world. We call it world. But that world is actually Brahman alone. So there's going to be so many theories about why this world has come to be. None will satisfy. All will be flawed. All will be flawed. As I gave you some, that this is a place for jiva to exhaust the karma. But which came first, the jiva or the karma? Right? And this is for Bhagwan's Leela. But why will Bhagwan have Leela? Was Bhagwan bored that he has to have Leela? Was he not full? If he is infinite, then he should be full, content. So this, what we are seeing, is actually just Brahman alone. But because we don't understand it, we don't recognize it, we call it world, we call it Jagat. So this world, because we are seeing it, it is explained this way. It is like when the teacher and the student are there, and the student says, I am seeing a snake on the rope. And the teacher knows there's no rope, there's no snake. There's a rope, there's no snake. The teacher knows this. But the student is saying, I am seeing a snake. I'm seeing a snake there. So you please tell me, what is this snake? So the teacher first has to describe the snake and then negate the snake and then tell the student there is only rope. In the same way, here it is describing the world. Only then later on in the later chapters to negate the world, to say that Brahman alone is. And how it's describing the world is cyclical. It is not that there's a beginning or end, it's a cycle. And actually, we don't really use the word creation so much because it's really a manifestation. It is from the unmanifest becoming manifest. This is what we call the beginning manifestation, or whatever if we want to say creation, it's from the unmanifest becoming manifest. And the dissolution is nothing but manifest to unmanifest. And it's a cycle. Exactly what's happening in the microcosm, that's what's happening in the macrocosm. So when we wake up from deep sleep, we go from unmanifest, and all of a sudden, everything is manifested for us. And then when we go to deep sleep from the manifest, we all of a sudden go into unmanifest. So exactly what's happening here, that's what's happening in the world. And we say that there's no beginning and there's no end. It has to be a cycle, because if we do not take this world as a cycle, so many doshas or flaws will happen. What are the flaws? Number one, if we do not take this world as cyclical, then there's the flaw of Bhagwan being partial, Vaishamya dosha. Vaishamya dosha means Bhagavan's partial. Because how will you explain some people were born healthy, some people not healthy, some people in well-to-do families, some people in poor families, in the slum area. Some people were born with some intelligence, some were born without any intelligence. How would we explain that? So we cannot say that Bhagavan is partial, that he's giving a wealth to somebody and not to others, a good family to someone and not to others. So we say that this is due to the law of karma. It's because of their past karma. Second is, if we say that there's a beginning and the end, and this is the first birth, then there will be the defect of cruelty or nairgranya dosha. Nairgranya dosha means that Bhagwan would be cruel. He would be cruel to how come to have some people suffer, but not others. So if we take this to be the first birth alone, then God or Ishvara would appear to be partial and would be very cruel. So two defects, Vaishamya and Nirgranya. The third defect is Akrita Abhyagama. What that means is that how can I explain how I am? Why do I have this kind of body? Why this kind of samskaras? This family? Why am I in this place? I must have done something to get these results. If I do not believe in a previous birth, then this result would be random. I would be so random. There's no randomness here. There's a reason why I and you, we have this kind of birth. We have this place. We have this certain samskaras. It's because of our past life. So if we don't believe in that, then we are having this without any reason. It's random. Akrita abhyagama. For something we did not do, we're getting something. So it is like there's an effect, but there's no cause. That is called akrita abhyagama. There's an effect here, but there's no cause. We can't point out the cause. So there has to be a previous cause as to why this is an effect. Fourth dosha is called krita vipranasha. Now, if I believe that this is the last birth and there's no other birth after this, then whatever I have done, the results of the actions that I've done, I may not be able to get all those results in this lifetime itself. So if I don't get all of it in this lifetime, where will it go? Krita vipranasha means that which I have done, those results of actions, those results for actions which I have done, they will be destroyed. They will be destroyed. So there's a cause here, but no effect, because there's nowhere for it to go. So there has to be another birth, because I cannot receive all of the results of my actions in this very life itself. So if I do not believe in this cycle of birth, death, all these four defects will come into play. Defect of partiality in Bhagwan, cruelty in Bhagwan, defect of an effect without a cause, defect of a cause without effect. So this is how our world works. Continuous again and again and again. Now more he's going to say in the next verse. How long will this go on? How long will it go on? Bhutagramassa evayam
भूतग्रामस्य एवायम्
bhutva bhutva praliyate
भूत्वा भूत्वा प्रलीयते
ratryagameva shaf partha
रात्र्यागमे वशः पार्थ
prabhavantyah ragame
प्रभवन्त्यः रागमे
भूतग्रामस्य एवायं भूत्वा भूत्वा प्रलीयते रात्र्यागमेव वशः पार्थ प्रभवन्त्यः रागमे. He says, Bhutagramah, a multitude of beings, Saha eva ayam bhutva bhutva praliyate, means that this will be being born and born again and again, praliyate, it dissolves. Ratri agame, at the coming of night, avashaha partha, helplessly, O Partha, prabhavati, they come forth. Aha, agame, at the coming of day. So this same multitude of beings is being born again and again and is dissolved into the unmanifest helplessly. O Partha, at the coming of night. And they come forth again and again at the coming of day. So helplessly, this avashaha, helplessly pulled by our karmas, we go into birth after birth after birth again and again. So with every desire, as I had said previously, there's a new birth. The more we keep desiring, the more and more births there will be. And it helplessly pushes us to act. The minute we have a desire for something, for the world, helplessly we are pushed into action. And if we are pushed into action, again we have to gain results. And if we have to gain results, again we have to come back to experience those results. So it's a helpless cycle that goes on and on and on until somebody breaks from it, until somebody says, enough of it. Now I want something deeper. There is a man, very grouchy kind of man, very grouchy. And he didn't smile much. He didn't really spend time with his family or with his children or with his wife. He was doing his own business and he was just stuck on that. He was just stuck on his business. And he was just into making a lot of money. That's all he did. And his wife was very pious, very humble, and she loved welcoming sadhus at home. So whenever there were sadhus visiting, she would welcome them at home. He didn't like it, but he didn't make a big fuss. He just, he rolled his eyes and he just looked at this guy. He didn't like it. Now one day, as he was leaving for the office, a sadhu came. So he was, trying to rush and avoid the sadhu because he didn't want anything to do with them. He was trying to rush out. And the sadhu said, I need to tell you something. He said, well, it's okay. I have to go. I'm in a rush. The sadhu said, no, I need to tell you something. He said, what? the sadhu said, "You have 7 days to live." And he said, "What?" Sadhu said, "Yes, you have 7 days to live." And that man was completely shocked, completely shocked. And he didn't go to work that day. He sat down and he just couldn't move. He couldn't think. He didn't know what to do. And the whole day he was just laying in bed. Whole day he was laying in bed. The next day he woke up. He said, "I need to do something now with my life." He said, "I'm taking time off work." He called the office. He said, "I'm taking time off work. I want to see my children." He called the children. He said, "I want to have lunch with you." The children were shocked. "What do you mean? Are you my dad? Are you sure you're my dad?" The children were so shocked. And he said, "Yeah, I want to see you for lunch." We sat with them and he was smiling. And the children hadn't seen him smile, in a long time. He was smiling and he said, "Now I don't think I'll have much to live." He was in his 60s at that time. And said, I want to give you whatever my property is. I want to teach you all that I know." And they said, "We don't know how to handle all of this." He said, "Don't worry, I'll get the people in the office to teach you." And the children were very surprised, but they looked at their mom, and their mom said, "I don't know." One sadhu spoke to him, "I don't know what I'm, don't ask me." Then in the night, before he went to sleep, he said, he told his wife, "I want to talk to you." She said, "What happened?" He said, "I really love you. And I'm so grateful for everything that you've done." She said, "Are you my husband or what?" Like, are you? She didn't understand also what's going on. She just said, okay, fine, go to sleep." And he said, "No, really, I really, all these years you have stood by me, you've taken care of me, and I've never really done much for you." And that night, she cried as she went to sleep. She was very shocked at her husband. The next day, he went to the office and he started getting to know all of his employees. And he was very nice and sweet to them. And on his way back, he greeted his neighbors. So slowly by slowly, everyone was getting shocked at the way he was living. He's a completely different person. After 7 days, he knew then he was going to pass. So he slept. On that last day, he slept. He said, "Tomorrow I'm going to pass away. I don't know when, I don't know what time, but I feel a little bit more fulfilled than I've ever been feeling." He went to sleep and he woke up the next day. And the first person he saw is that sadhu. And that sadhu pulled him aside and said, "What happened? How do you feel?" He said, "I feel great, but I know I'm going to lose my life." And the sadhu said, "No, you're not going to lose your life." He said, "What do you mean you lied to me?" He said, "Yeah, I had to lie to you because you've lost everything. You've lost your charm, you've lost your smile, you've lost your relationships, your whole life, you've lost everything. And I wanted you to have the experience of gaining fulfillment, at least a little bit, in your later years. You have 20 more years. Live it fully." And so this man, he did pranam to that sadhu, and he felt overjoyed because although he thought he was going to die, in fact, he did die. His old self died. Sadhu was right. Sadhu didn't lie. In 7 days, his old self died. And a new being emerged, which is more brilliant than ever. And from that point on, he welcomed all sadhus to his home. And he spent time with his family and did what was most valuable. That's how he lived. This is what happens to us also. Why this chapter is so important is because we're getting stuck in absolutely useless things. What if we had 7 more days to live? Huh? Would we make such a big fuss about things that are happening around us? 99.9% of the things are small things. And in these small things, we make such a big deal as if it's going to be the end of the world. Well, in our Shastra, there's no end of the world. Again, it'll come back. Huh? One of our Swamijis said so beautifully, he said, you are nothing but a pimple on the dimple on the left cheek of an ant. That is how valuable we are. Huh? Imagine how big space is, how big the galaxies are, the planets are, how big the earth is, how big countries are. Of all of that, we are the small part. There are people who are going to war, people who are dying of starvation, people losing their lives every day. And you and I are sitting and complaining our food is not hot. What happened? What kind of nerve do we have? Huh? So this is to tell us, don't sweat the small stuff. Know that we are part of a greater, larger picture. And let us die, meaning let our old selves die. And let our new selves emerge. The self which has Bhagwan as the center of life. So that, like those great Mahatmas, we can be seated at the lap of Bhagwan, at the lap of Bhagavati, without any fear of any such punarjanma. That is the message of these beautiful verses. Right? Okay. So today we will stop here. Huh? So in essence, we all know what to do. Our sadhana that we have to practice is don't sweat the small stuff. And if ever we want to complain about something, just know how small we are. How small is this matter in comparison to the largeness of the world? Of the world. Right. Say the closing prayer. Om Purnamadav Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vashishyate Om Shanti 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 Harihi Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha Harihi Om.